Well, one thing is for certain about Don Jr. He pays close attention to his father's act and tries to emulate it the best he can. And in doing so, he just comes off like a bargain bin knockoff of Trump, which is really sad considering Trump himself is just a bargain bin knockoff of a snake oil salesman, a grifter, and a con artist. I can't imagine being Don Jr. Out of all the juniors in the world, I can't imagine that that's your dad and you have to go out there and take his name and run with it. But I have to hand it to him. He tries. A lot of times when I see him, he just comes off very cartoonish to me. There's times where I'm just waiting for him to bust out a character and admit that it was all just an act and it was satire, because sometimes it doesn't seem real. But here he is at the RNC, and a reporter asks him a question, and what does he do? He does the best Timu Trump that he can. Take a look.
Immigration's important to him. I covered the family separation crisis closely. Will we continue to see policies like separating 5,000 children deliberately from their parents?
You mean the Obama administration?
You know they didn't do that, sir.
Okay, sure.
Will there be a second family separation policy?
It's MSDNC, so I expect nothing less from you clowns. Even today, even 48 hours later, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait with your lies and with your nonsense. So just get out of here.
That's just a classic Trump move right there. The minute a reporter asks them a question that they don't like, instead of trying to come up with some sort of answer, even if it was just a bullshit politician answer, it would be better than what they do, which is immediately insult the reporter, start insulting the network, start trying to say that it was all fake news. That is a classic Trump move. Another classic Trump move is to always say the game is rigged against you. And they do that, folks, so that when they lose, they've already created that out. It's classic cult-like mentality, and Junior has adopted it as well. Take a look.
President Trump loses, it will be why?
It'll be why? Well, I'd say cheating. I don't know. This is obviously something people are going to criticize. I don't think that Joe Biden overperformed only in Philadelphia, Atlanta, Detroit, Milwaukee. I just don't believe that's real. I don't think anyone that's serious. I get the narrative. I understand it. It was the freest and fairest election ever. We can't articulate why, but they said it. That was the talking point. It went out. I think we have to have an operation that's watching, for that nonsense. Because again, I don't think there's a length that the other side won't go to with that. So we're going to have to make sure we have people just watching it very closely.
So yeah, the only way his dad could lose is if they cheat. That's the only way it could possibly happen. It couldn't be because of what your dad stands for. It couldn't be because of his policies. It couldn't be because there's a whole lot of Americans out there who absolutely disagree with this. And there's a whole lot of Americans who are out there that are really sick and tired of this hateful rhetoric that always comes from the Trumps and always comes from MAGA. And ever since what happened in Pennsylvania, and again, I condemn that violence. I'm sorry it happened to Trump. Don't want to see the guy held accountable that way at all. But ever since then, Don Jr. has just been on a tirade on Twitter. He posted this. Don't tell me they didn't know exactly what they were doing with this crap. Calling my dad a dictator and a threat to democracy wasn't some one-off comment. It has been the main message of Biden-Kamala campaign and Democrats across the country. Well, that's because your dad said that he wanted to be dictator on day one and said he wanted to terminate the Constitution. We didn't just pull that out of our ass. It's the first time in American history that someone running for president has even uttered those words. And had they uttered those words 15, 20, 30 years ago, their career would have ended. They would have been toast if they'd have said that. But Trump goes out and says that, and it's okay. And after what happened in Pennsylvania, are they trying to turn the temperature down? No, somehow they're telling us that we should turn it down and we should stop pointing out the obvious. But yet at their RNC, they're chanting, fight, fight, fight. Look at this. Now, Democrats across the board have been condemning the political violence, and Democrats across the board have been sending their well wishes to Trump and his family. But they're at the convention chanting, fight, fight, fight. They're doubling down on all their ridiculous conspiracy theories, and they're digging in their heels even harder. And then they're looking over at us and saying, you guys need to turn the temperature down. Well, we're not the ones that turned it up. We're not the ones that went to the Capitol and hit police officers over the head and kicked down doors and broke out windows. That's not us. We're not the ones that put our feet on Pelosi's desk and carried Confederate flags through the Capitol. That's not us. And we are not the bad guys, folks, for pointing out the obvious. You know, it should have been a moment of reflection for MAGA. They should have stopped and said, hey, you know, calling people the enemy, calling people vermin, saying that people are poisoning the blood, saying that people needs to be deported and ran out of this country, being as cruel and over the top as we can. Yeah, it may get ratings, and we know that's all Trump cares about, but it should have been a moment where they all stopped and said, hey, wait a minute, this isn't who we are. But no. They just dig in their heels harder. And I can already hear a troll now somewhere saying, well, what about the Black Lives Matter protest? I know that comment will be in the comment section of this video before it even really hits the airwaves. That's just how it goes. And to those people, I would say this, that is complete apples and oranges to compare the two, because I'm not condoning any violence that has ever happened. But the Black Lives Matter protests that happened because black people have been trying to tell us for years about police brutality, and nothing has changed. A protest is the voice of the unheard, and their voices weren't being heard. I don't condone any of the violence that happened, but that was a protest of the unheard. What happened on January 6th was not the protest of the unheard, because their voices was heard in a free and fair election, and then they bought into conspiracy theories and hateful rhetoric until they went to the Capitol and tried to overturn an election that they lost. So you cannot compare the two. If anyone's trying to, just go ahead and quit, because you're going to lose that argument every time. But we can always count on Don Jr. to try his best to emulate his dad. And we can always count on MAGA to try to emulate that hateful rhetoric. But folks, I really believe that people are getting tired of this. I really believe we all, no matter which side of the aisle you fall on, can we at least agree that this type of cruel rhetoric and just turning the temperature up full blast has got to stop? Can we at least agree that that type of rhetoric is getting so old and we just want to move on to something else? Are we really going to sit back and risk letting Trump be the leader of the free world again, and then they will have free reins to do whatever they want to, and everything they've ever said will be validated. They will feel empowered to walk all over and tread all over everybody while they fly "Don't tread on me" flag from the truck. We have to stay focused. I say it all the time. We have to stay focused. We have to keep our eye on the ball. And a good friend of mine said, Brando, you're always telling us to keep our eye on the ball, but there's so much coming at us these days. You're right, there is. But we have to stay focused and let Don Jr. do that impression of his father until it goes out of style. And the rest of us just try to stay on message and stay on point.